Hello and welcome to the Real World Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us here on episode 18 of the Real World Podcast. Be sure to give us a like, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications of all our videos here at the Real World. This episode is all about non-comic book superhero movies, and I'm joined again by my brother Carson. How you doing?
Good to be here. Glad to be back for number 18.
Yes.
Surprised we've had this many episodes already.
I know, it's pretty incredible. So, we're going to be talking about the new movie Samaritan that just dropped on Amazon Prime, the new movie Secret Headquarters that dropped on Paramount Plus. All kinds of new superhero movies are coming out this weekend, so we thought this would be a good topic. Hope you join us. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Be sure to leave us a comment below with all of your favorite non-comic book superhero movies. Also, join us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hope you enjoy the conversation. All right, before we jump into our favorite non-comic book superhero movies, we wanted to talk about some movie news that hit the internet this week.
What do we have?
First of all, they're re-releasing Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, I heard about this.
And it's called the More Fun Stuff Edition. And it is going to add 11 minutes of never-before-seen footage.
11 minutes of unnecessary stuff.
Probably. However, we just talked last week about Jurassic World Dominion.
And that's true.
Changed my entire point of view on the film.
That's
so
true.
It could be really good stuff that makes the movie even better.
Yeah. I don't know. That movie, it's so long, and
It is long.
I have so many problems with it already.
Right.
Adding more stuff on it, especially if it's marketed as the More Fun Stuff Edition. I don't know. I don't know what they could add that would be so crucial.
I know. I'm sure it's just a few more quippy lines with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. That's what
I'm sure we'll get a we'll either get that or we'll get a some kind of a Sandman elevator scene.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something where it's just like a quippy
couple little jokes.
Super villain.
I'm not expecting any big action scenes or anything like that. It's just going to be a couple more jokes. And
if ever there was a movie that didn't need an extended version, it's No Way Home.
That's plenty of movie already. So,
anyways,
but we'll have to wait and see.
What else do we have?
Also, Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, is getting a 4K Ultra HD 3D re-release in theaters in September. So,
well, I remember this being like the greatest theatrical experience ever.
It was incredible. I mean, it changed cinema. I mean, because every movie after that came out in 3D.
Yeah, definitely.
So
actually, just recently I watched Dune. Recently came out and I watched that in 3D.
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen a 3D movie in years.
Yeah, that was the latest one I watched, and it was really good. But yeah, I'm excited to see.
It could be fun to watch it
again. I mean,
I've got the Blu-ray. It looks great.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna go back to the theater to see it, but I'd be interested because I am excited about the sequel.
I'm very excited for the sequel.
It's released in December. Some big casting news came out about the Planet of the Apes. So the Planet of the Apes franchise, the most recent film came out in 2017, War for the Planet of the Apes.
Perfect conclusion.
Great conclusion to that trilogy. They are going to continue the story. I'm guessing it's going to be years later, probably focusing on Caesar's son. And they've cast an actor named Owen Teague, who was an actor from the movie It, the recent remake of It from Stephen King. He's cast as the lead in that new movie. And the director, I'm very excited about because he did what I think is a very underrated trilogy, the Maze Runner trilogy. His name's Wes Ball, and he is now in charge of this new Planet of the Apes film. So I guess production will get underway soon. And hopefully some more plot details come out. We don't really know, again, anything about the movie other than the director and now the actor. So we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll see. I was content with Planet of the Apes, but I mean, if it's the same kind of team that did the originals, then I say originals, the remakes, then I think it'll be engaging enough.
Yeah, especially if they have a new compelling story again that's set years later. I think it's an interesting world to explore.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things they can do there. So some video game news that ties into movie news. They've announced a new video game for Dune.
I heard it. I saw the trailer for that.
Did you? Dune Awakenings.
Yeah,
it's coming. It's like a survival MMO game.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know much about it, but what do you?
It's in the same vein as a game called Ark Survivor, which I know. It's kind of a popular MMO survival.
Yeah.
There's very little known about it. We just have a cinematic trailer, so we don't even know what the gameplay looks like. But a big open world MMO, which MMO is like a big multiplayer online game.
Okay, multiplayer.
That's kind of what
makes
that
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, massive multiplayer online is what
Okay, gotcha.
Something like that in the Dune universe, I think, could definitely be interesting.
Right. About a whole new character.
Yeah.
And do we know, like, is it during the movie? Is it after, before?
No idea.
Okay.
No idea if it ties in at all or
Gotcha.
what it is. We know very little about it.
A video game adaptation that just got a director, BioShock.
Oh.
So this is a very popular game franchise.
Yeah.
And Francis Lawrence, who did I Am Legend, he did Water for Elephants, he did the Hunger Games, the last 3 Hunger Games movies.
Okay.
He is doing the BioShock movie. And I'm excited because I like him as a director, but I'm really excited because the writer they have is Michael Green, who wrote Blade Runner 2049 and Logan.
Wow.
So an excellent screenwriter they have, and I don't know anything about those games. Do you know much about them?
Not much. I haven't played any of them, but I know the aesthetic is kind of steampunky, and Sky Island stuff. So
sure,
yeah, it looks cool. I mean, I hear great things about them. I've wanted to play them for a while, but
yeah, they're like first-person shooter type games. I know that.
Right.
I don't know much about the world.
Right?
Is it like a looks like post-apocalyptic maybe?
Yeah.
Like there's some virus that was unleashed or something, or I don't know, but really interested because of the talent involved there. And that will be a Netflix film. So Netflix will release that directly on their streaming service. So
I'm sure BioShock fans will be pleased.
Also, a little bit more about the Warner Brothers debacle that's going on out there. They did sign director Matt Reeves, who directed the recent Batman movie, The Batman, to a first look deal, which basically means that he's got kind of free reign there at the studio to do whatever he wants.
That's good.
And so that's exciting. They officially greenlit the Batman 2, which he's writing now with a writer named Mattson Tomlin, who directed the recent Mother Android film on Hulu. Okay. He also wrote Project Power for Netflix.
Saw Project Power.
And I think he's a good screenwriter. I really like Mother Android. I think that's an underrated movie that more people need to watch. If you have Hulu, definitely check that one out.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
So they're both teaming up for the Batman 2, which does not have a release date yet, but they did bump 2 films that are coming out soon. Were set to come out soon. Now they're not. Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods, is now bumped to March 13th, 2023. So we're going to have to wait 3 more months for that one. And then Aquaman 2, which was scheduled for March, is now bumped all the way to December of 2023. So that's going to be a Christmas release for next year instead of March of next year. That's
what a disaster.
Big delays on those 2. I know. I was really looking forward to both of those, and we'll just have to wait a little bit longer, unfortunately.
I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what their plan is. The Matt Reeves news is obviously good.
Yes.
That's kind of a no-brainer that we would get a sequel to the Batman.
Correct.
As far as what they're doing with their DCU, I still have high hopes that they can salvage it and manage to still make movies like the Batman and Joker, and other kind of
standalone films.
Yeah, sort of isolated, right?
With a shared continuity. Also going on.
Like James Gunn's Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, stuff like that are kind of director focused,
right? Yep,
they're separate kind of movies. They're still they still use DC's characters, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I just hope for Aquaman 2 and Shazam 2 that it's not a delay because they're reworking the whole movie and they're changing all these things about it last minute. I hope it's more just...
I can't imagine them doing that again.
Yeah, I think it's just to give it room to breathe, because Avatar was coming out like the week before Shazam. So they probably wanted to delay it for that reason. And these movies are huge with special effects. I mean, they're special effects heavy movies. So I'm sure they're going to want to fine tune those as good as they can.
Yeah.
Another big piece of news related to DC is that they're kind of looking for their own Kevin Feige, supposedly. Again, this is all reported. None of it's officially coming from the studio, so we don't know how much of it's true.
Okay.
But Dan Lin supposedly is in line for being the head of DC Film and TV. He's done producer on movies like Lego Movie, Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr., the recent It films. So he's a pretty big producer. He's done a lot of big stuff. Godzilla versus Kong, he just did. So he's done some big movies, and I think he's done a pretty good job with most of them as a producer. Yeah. And so we'll just have to wait and see if that news is official and it does come out that he's the new head of DC or what. We'll just have to wait.
Okay.
Shifting over to Marvel for a second, the Fantastic Four movie, we know, lost their director, John Watts.
Right.
After doing No Way Home, he decided, I've had enough Marvel. I'm going on to do Star Wars. So he's doing Star Wars, that Star Wars series.
Skeleton Crew,
exactly.
That looks good.
Yeah, that should be fun.
That's definitely for the best. John Watts, I think, was I think he was losing his identity as a director.
I agree.
Under the Spider-Man movies.
Right. I think the Star Wars move is a good one for him. So supposedly, reportedly, they're bringing in Matt Shakman, who directed the WandaVision series, to do Fantastic Four. Which I think is a good choice. I liked WandaVision a lot.
Definitely, if they do the more 60s throwback thing, I'm hoping they do with Fantastic Four.
That's exactly what I thought.
Could be.
If they do that 60s era that Peyton Reed was going to do for so long, he could be good at that. So, but unfortunately, that means that he is no longer directing his Star Trek film. He was set to direct this fourth of the new Star Trek movies. And so that is now on hold until they find a new director for that. So
we have Chris Pine and company.
Supposedly the whole cast is coming back.
Interesting.
So again, no official word on that yet. We'll just have to wait and see. But is Marvel destroying other franchises in more ways than one? Because that Star Trek movie has been in development since Beyond came out back in 2016. And so they finally had their director. He was ready to go. And then Marvel comes in. Nope. You're doing Fantastic Four, buddy.
That's what happens when you're a big superpower like Marvel is.
Exactly. And so
the MCUs they have infinite resources.
Yeah.
So it's impossible for people to really say no to them.
I know.
Which is a pity. But Star Trek's in such a disaster area right now.
Yeah, I know. All the series they have on Paramount Plus and everything is just, I don't know what's going on there. But
their direction, it should just be more simplified.
I agree.
Just do focus on one thing.
Right. Well, it was interesting because JJ, after he did Beyond, he was interviewed by Scott Mantz, where he said, the fourth film, we have the story. It's George Kirk, Captain Kirk's father, and Captain Kirk, James Kirk, teaming up on a mission.
Okay.
And so I don't know how that would work. It would have to be another reality or time travel involved again somehow. But that idea, I just think is so compelling.
Yeah.
But nothing's come of it. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, that's it for movie news. Now we're going to jump into our reviews of two recent films that just hit streaming this weekend. Samaritan, starring Sylvester Stallone, and Secret Headquarters, starring Owen Wilson. All right, folks, now we're jumping into our reviews of two new movies that just hit streaming services. One is on Paramount Plus, that's Secret Headquarters, and the other is Samaritan on Amazon Prime. So if you're a Prime subscriber, you have this movie for free. You can watch it right now, and it stars Sylvester Stallone.
And you should watch it right now.
You absolutely should. It's directed by a guy named Julius Avery, who's a director I like. I've seen both of his. He's only done two other movies. One of them's called Overlord, came out a few years ago. It's about Nazi zombies.
Yeah.
World War II, kind of fun, pulpy, violent action movie. And then another one called Son of a Gun, which is a small indie movie I got to watch this week with Ewan McGregor. And it's kind of like a crime story.
Okay.
It's really well done. That one's on HBO Max right now if you haven't seen that.
We like small indie films.
We do. So this movie, I was really pleasantly surprised with it. I wasn't expecting much, and I came away having a really good time.
Yeah.
I think they did a great job keeping the story tight, telling it very effectively overall. The opening sequence just got me. It's got this kind of like animated feel to it, this great voiceover narration going on. So you're kind of getting the whole backstory of the superhero and who he was. And it's basically all about a kid who discovers that his next door neighbor was a superhero. And so that's kind of the basic plot and the kind of, bad guys they have to face off against. And it's really fun. It's in this dirty, dingy city. It's always raining. There's garbage everywhere.
Yeah, it's a better Gotham City than the Gotham we see in Nolan's Dark Knight movies.
It's really good. It's a really good, down and dirty, rundown city. I thought that was really good. Homeless people all over the place.
Right. I really like the story. Really focuses and kind of hinges on this kid and his kind of scrappy upbringing.
Yeah, he's very poor. He's kind of living on the wrong side of the tracks. Him and his single mom trying to make it.
Right. And he's always getting involved with gangs and the kind of bully kids, and he's always kind of trying to make money everywhere he can.
Right.
That makes him really grounded and relatable and kind of likable because he has this kind-hearted nature. He's a superhero fan himself.
Right.
He looks up to heroes.
Yeah.
And it makes for this really interesting contrast between him and Sylvester Stallone's character.
Right. He was just depressed. He's kind of trying to stay to himself the whole time. Right. He doesn't want anything to do with anybody. Stallone, I think, is great here. I really think he delivers a great performance.
Very well utilized.
It's very stoic. It's very kind of like worn down old man type feel. But there's a couple of moments towards the end where, he gets really emotional too.
Sure.
And I thought all of that stuff worked very well. So the kid, by the way, the character's name is Sam. He's played by an actor named Javon Walton. I think this is the first thing he's ever done.
Yeah, he did.
And
he did an awesome job.
He really did. I was really impressed by his performance. I think overall he just does a really good job. And it's fairly well written. I think there's some kind of clunky dialogue at places.
Sure.
They try to go for some dialogue moments and one-liners that don't really work, but I think overall it's really well written. It's pretty effective. It's not super dialogue heavy.
Sure.
It's really more of a visual storytelling that they utilize here, which I think they do great with the camera work.
Yeah, definitely. The visual language is really good, and like you said earlier, the writing is really tight.
Yeah.
So things that we see come back later.
Yeah, set up and payoff.
Everything has kind of a fluid motion.
Yes.
The movie feels just under what its actual length is.
Yeah, it's only about hour 40 minutes. And it feels like it breezes by.
Yeah. It's super, super well made.
Yeah, it is. The music I wanted to mention, Kevin Kiner, who does Clone Wars.
Okay.
He does Star Wars Clone Wars music. He did the music on this with a guy named Jed Kurtzel.
Awesome. That's great.
Jed Kurtzel's the brother of Justin Kurtzel, who does the music on all of Damien Chazelle's films. So Whiplash, La La Land, First Man. His brother worked on this music as well, and I really thought the score was pretty effective. Okay. So there's a twist that you called.
Yeah.
Right around the middle of the movie.
Sure.
You called the twist, and I really liked the twist. I thought it was really effective. It was a little clunky in how they executed it, I think. But I think
the idea is strong enough.
The idea is strong, and a couple of subtle changes would have made it a little better. I wanted to mention the effects, I think, are pretty good. I mean, especially for a streaming
there's a lot of practical stuff going on.
A lot of practical, but even the CGI stuff I thought was pretty well done. Yeah. The action sequences are really intense and engaging and fun. I think
there's just a lot of personality in the environment that they're in.
There is.
Everything looks the way it should.
Right.
It's dirty and grinchy and grimy, and the characters are very big. There's a scene where he goes into a pawn shop and talks to a guy.
Right.
And he's just full of personality, and it's really great. Well, like a Sam Raimi Spider-Man kind of thing.
Sure.
You get like a one-liner here or there from a street person.
Right.
But visually, it's much more muted, toned down, grounded.
Yeah, it's telling a slightly darker story.
Sure.
So that works, I think, pretty effectively. Yeah, it's a kind of a classic good versus evil, but with a twist and with a kind of more complex morality.
Right. That's kind of the message of the movie, is that there's kind of good and bad in everybody, and that trying to find the balance between the two, and trying to
the choices you make.
Sure, yeah, and kind of who you are and where you come from doesn't define who you have to become, and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was good, and it had a good ending too. I thought it ended well. It kind of all comes together at the end. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I think I could give it 3.5 stars, maybe even 4. I'm right in that range.
Definitely. I agree.
Is that where you are?
Yeah, I was thinking 4.
Yeah.
Because it does a lot that I really enjoy. It's streamlined and super solid.
Right. Yeah, definitely check out Samaritan on Amazon Prime as soon as possible. Definitely worth a watch. All right, and the second movie we checked out was Secret Headquarters. This is on Paramount Plus. So if you subscribe to the Paramount Plus streaming service, you have access to this film. This is why I'm not subscribed to Paramount Plus. Because they make trash like this. This is a Ryan Reynolds quippy, full of trash. If you've seen what's the movie he did? The one where he's the kid. Adam Project. If you've seen Adam Project,
if you've seen, he did some other one recently. It was Free Guy.
Free Guy, Red Notice.
Red Notice. Have you seen any of those movies? It's all the same. It's the same trash. I can't stand it. This movie makes me crazy. It's full of just nonsense. It's wasting time. It's just you're floating around talking to characters that just speak nonsense. They don't talk like how they are. It follows a group of teenagers, right? And they're supposed to be like what, early high school. They're kind of like freshman guys or whatever. They all look like they're 12, and they find the secret basement where the superhero lives, right? Oh, that's a cool idea. Maybe we'll have some fun. Kids find superhero stuff. None of that fun stuff happens. There's a scene it's the most mind-bogglingly, horribly edited scene I've ever seen in a movie. It cuts from them, then like they're in the van, then they're at school, then they're back to that secret headquarters, then they're like, and it cuts so fast you don't know when you are or where you are or what's going on. It's so nonsensical and crazy. The villain is super cookie cutter, standard corporate bad guy. He gets the bad guy suit. He fights the good guy with the good guy suit. It's just like so minimal effort, so by the numbers, and I couldn't take it. I could not take it. It hurt me to watch.
Rant over?
Rant over.
Okay. So this movie is directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schumann. They're the guys that directed a movie I actually liked on Netflix called Project Power. And
okay, I love Project Power.
You know, it stars Owen Wilson. We got Michael Pena in there. We got Walter Scobell, who's in that movie Adam Project that you mentioned. He plays the young version of Ryan Reynolds.
He also plays young Ryan Reynolds in this movie.
Pretty much, yeah. Director of photography is Larry Fong, who works with Zack Snyder a lot. 300, Watchmen, Sucker Punch, Batman v Superman. He also did Super 8. Mm-hmm. He did Kong Skull Island. He's a really good cinematographer.
That is interesting though that he did those movies, because I definitely saw visual flares from those movies. There was a lot of slow-mo.
Right.
There's a scene in Super 8 when they're all talking about, we got to go to the water tower,
right,
and the camera's like spinning around them. We definitely got that. Yep. It's just less visually interesting.
Right. Composer is Lauren Balfe, who I think did a pretty good job on the score. He did the recent Mission Impossible movie. So yeah, look, this one has a runtime of 1 hour and 44 minutes. It felt more like 4 hours and 41 minutes. So this one we didn't enjoy quite as much, if you can't tell from Carson's rant there. So, you know, it's just kind of one of those paint by numbers, generic, lowest common denominator comedy. You know, it's silly, and it is sometimes funny. We did laugh out loud several times. Some of them were maybe unintentional.
I was laughing at the movie, at its incompetence.
Right. There were several continuity errors that we saw, which was baffling. I don't know how a movie like this.
So there. Okay, look, continuity errors don't bother me at all.
Right.
Jurassic Park has continuity errors.
Sure.
You see people's hands pushing dinosaurs around. You see Jaws looks kind of terrible. There's whatever. Doesn't matter, because those movies are great. Because the story's there, the characters are there. This one, Star Wars. A guy hits his head on the door. Why?
Sure.
Haven't noticed that as many dozens of times as I've seen it. Right? Because the story's there.
Yeah. You're engaged in the story.
You're invested in the characters.
Yeah.
And a movie like this, when it's all very planned by the numbers, whatever, all of those little mistakes just jump out at you.
Yeah.
The character's holding a guitar in one scene. It cuts to a reverse shot. Cut back, and they're not holding a guitar anymore. It's standing up next to them.
Right.
Cut back again, then recut, and they're holding the guitar again. Right. And it's just like, stuff doesn't match up at all.
Right. Yeah. So things like that, things like, you know, it's just kind of riffing on. I mean, this is basically, you know, the opening scene is Green Lantern's origin.
Sure.
It's kind of,
a less interesting version of
right. And then he becomes Iron Man as the superhero. And it's kind of got this Spy Kids type vibe, but it's not as good as any of those things I just mentioned, because it's not original enough. It's not taking enough risks. It's not getting us to invest in the characters and their story enough.
Everything that happens to the characters is their own fault.
Right.
So I have no sympathy for any of them.
Right. And the villains are not menacing at all. You know, they try to make them menacing in one scene, and that's the thing too, is like the tonal balance, is they try to go dark a couple of moments, but it's all got this very light tone to it, so it doesn't really jive exactly.
Yeah. I think the reason I'm so hard on this is probably because we just watched Samaritan,
right,
which was really great,
yeah.
and the villains are like exactly as they should be in that movie.
Right.
They're threatening, they're dangerous, they're kind of crazy,
sure.
And they just fight people just randomly all the time. They're just like always wanting to get beat up and to beat people up.
Right.
So there's always a sense of danger when you're with characters who are villainous like that.
Yeah. So
there's none of that in Secret Headquarters.
Secret Headquarters, yeah, just it fails on most levels. I think there are some good effects moments. There's some good kind of actiony moments. A couple of good shots visually, I think. And like I said, it did make me laugh a couple times. So I wouldn't say the performances are bad either. I would just say I think the script is really the weakness of the film, because these directors have done a good movie before. We've seen all these actors do good stuff before. So it's really a failing of the script. The dialogue is really bad. A lot of attempts at one-liners here that all of them fall flat. And the comedy, this kind of modern idea of comedy of referencing things. There's this reference to Reddit, and like all these things that references aren't funny unless you're like spoofing something very specific. But
it's because they don't understand what a reference is.
Yeah.
What makes a reference funny or cool or interesting in a movie is when it's like it makes sense in context of what's going on.
Right.
Yeah. So in Civil War, Spider-Man makes a reference to Empire Strikes Back because that's how they take down Giant Man in the scene.
Right.
And that's kind of, it makes sense in the movie. It makes sense for his character.
Right.
He's young. He's kind of, he watches movies like that and whatever. So that makes sense.
This one was just random references to things, again, like Reddit or whatever's popular right now. And it'll be dated in 1 year. When we watch the movie again in a year, it'll be
that's the
irrelevant.
That's the real downfall of movie references and stuff like that. It always dates your stuff.
Exactly. All in all, this one, it wasn't as much fun for us, obviously. Younger audiences will probably get a kick out of it. Some kids might look at this as their Spy Kids, but I would recommend you just go watch Spy Kids because it's so much better. I ended up with 2 stars.
I think if I were a kid and I watched this, I would get bored. I can't imagine because there's nothing
too long
fun happening.
Yeah.
There's no one I want to be like.
Right.
It's just the whole time. So
yeah, so I ended up with 2 stars. That's really all I could give it. Don't really recommend Secret Headquarters unless you just want to waste, hour and a half or hour 45 minutes on this with the kids at home. But again, there's so many other movies you could watch that are better.
2 stars is too high.
Oh no.
2 stars because I just don't want garbage like this to continue.
Yeah,
I don't in any way want to support this kind of stuff.
I hear you.
I give it maybe a star.
Okay, 1 star.
It's better than nothing.
Right. All right, so that is our review of Secret Headquarters and Samaritan. Make sure you check those out on Paramount Plus and Amazon Prime. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Are we right? Are we wrong? We want to know. What's the star rating you would give it? What's your review of both of those movies? Put that in the comments. It'd be fun to have a conversation with you about those. All right, now that we've reviewed those 2 new movies, Samaritan and Secret Headquarters, we are going to jump into our top 5 favorite superhero movies not based on a comic book. So all of our movies that we picked are not based on comic books. I'm going to give 5. Carson's going to give his 5. We're going to break it down for you. But first, I wanted to mention some honorable mentions. I wanted to mention Hancock. This is one that was close to making my list. It's really funny because life imitates art. I mean, this is what Will Smith is going through right now. The public kind of hates him. And this is the character he plays in this movie.
He goes from being an unstoppable, all-powerful superhero to a bum on the street that nobody likes.
Right, he's a bum on the street. Nobody likes him. And he's got to learn to become a hero. So he needs a real-life Jason Bateman, is what I'm saying. Jason Bateman in this movie plays this PR agent who kind of takes on the responsibility of rebuilding Hancock's image. And Charlize Theron is in this movie as well as Jason Bateman's wife, who's kind of got a mysterious past you don't know about. And this movie, it's just tons of fun. It's really funny. I think it nails the comedy. It nails the action. There's a lot of fun action sequences and effects. And it sets up a unique mythology in it that's very subtle. But I would have liked to have seen a sequel to this. So they never made one, unfortunately. But I had a good time with this. What do you think of Hancock? Do you like it?
I like Hancock. It's not one that I think about rewatching regularly, but It's a movie that has some interesting visual cues. Like
right.
I remember, I think there are a few POV shots.
Right.
It's fun powers, and I remember that the effects holding up relatively well.
Yeah.
It's just not super memorable to me.
Right.
It's not one I look back on and want to rewatch like some other ones.
Sure, sure. Another one I wanted to mention was Megamind. This is a great animated movie from DreamWorks. I thought they did an excellent job with this. Will Ferrell as a supervillain. You got Brad Pitt as a superhero, Tina Fey as this reporter, and then Jonah Hill as this kind of side character who ends up becoming the villain. So this movie is all about heroes and villains, how anyone can be a hero or anyone can be a villain.
Sure.
It's a really unique superhero story that I think holds up very well. And I think the voice acting is great. I think they have a lot of, good comedy, good funny moments, a lot of good
a lot of it
tech.
A lot of it is kind of spoofing superhero tropes.
It is, yeah.
Mostly Superman,
right?
Because you have Metro Man.
And they both come from outer space.
They both come from outer space, and they have a reporter girlfriend, So it's kind of that. But yeah, Megamind as a character, is really interesting and has a great arc throughout the movie. It's definitely one I look back on fondly.
Yeah, that's one I've rewatched a number of times. So that one I get a kick out of. Really close to making my top 5 was Slight. This is a movie that's on Netflix right now. You can watch it. It's the first film from a filmmaker named J.D. Dillard, and he wrote and directed this movie, and I think he did a really good job. This is a brother-sister story. They're both very young. Their parents have passed away, and so the older brother's having to take care of the younger sister, and he's having to do street magic, and he ends up having to deal drugs in order to make ends meet. And so it's kind of this crime drama mixed in with this kind of family story. And all of the cast do an excellent job. It's very well written, feels very real and grounded. And I really like the whole theme of, responsibility and also the theme of escape. His hero is Houdini. And so you're seeing this Houdini poster throughout the movie. And it's all about him trying to escape this life of crime that he's gotten involved in.
Sure.
And how he's using the superpower he has to do that. And it's just really well done. I highly recommend it. It's totally went under the radar. It came out back in 2016. So definitely check out Slight as soon as possible. Last one I wanted to mention, we just mentioned earlier in our review of Secret Headquarters. If you want to see those directors do something really well, watch Project Power on Netflix. This is a much grittier, darker film. It's, again, kind of like a crime buddy cop vibe to it. And it all takes place in New Orleans. It has Jamie Foxx, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, a great young actress named Dominic Fishback, who is really the standout in this, I thought. Did an excellent job. But it's just this really, really cool idea of what if you could take a pill that will give you a superpower for 5 minutes.
Sure.
You don't know what that power is. And so you're taking a big risk by taking it. But this is another Mattson Tomlin script. So he's a really good writer, and I like his work in this too. I think it's really well written, has good dialogue, great characters and character interactions. I think all of the relationships work really well. So this is another one to check out. Got a lot of cool effects in there too.
Sure.
And good action sequences. So yeah, I like Project Power a lot. Did you like this one?
Yeah, I like Project Power. The main girl had a good arc, and Jamie Foxx's character was really interesting and dynamic, and
he was.
Not really what I expected from him, which was cool. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was really good too. I like him in pretty much everything he's in. But him being like this cop that's kind of going against the books, and also kind of like he's more street smart. I definitely liked him in a different role like that. So it was good.
All right, Carson, what are your honorable mentions?
5 honorable mentions I wanted to talk about real quick were Shark Boy and Lava Girl. It's one that my generation grew up with. The music's incredible. It's Robert Rodriguez, who did Spy Kids. Super fun, super energetic. Love it. Another one I wanted to mention was Push.
I like Push.
Push is good. It has a lot. It has kind of a varied cast of different people with powers.
And each of them has a different power. And there's like this government agency chasing them. I like that movie. It's
definitely, it's good. It has Chris Evans and just a great cast
Dakota
overall.
Fanning's in there.
She's great too. Fast Color was another one that I really liked. I believe this was streaming on Netflix. That's right. Yes. Fast Color is really unique in terms of superhero movies. It really doesn't feel like a superhero movie. It's more post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, that's true. It's like a dystopian future.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, there hasn't rained in years.
Right.
So water is this rare resource.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. And she's
So
like on the run.
Yeah.
You don't really know.
Super character focused.
You don't know what the story is. Like it's all revealed through character interactions and dialogue is like, what's going on?
A trope that's used a little bit too much in that movie is she doesn't know, and then you go back and tell a story about something.
Right.
But overall, it's super well made, really interesting. Another one I had to mention was Jumper.
Yeah, this one's fun.
Yeah, this is a Hayden Christensen, Samuel L. Jackson movie.
Star Wars reunion.
Yeah, where Hayden has the ability to teleport anywhere he can see.
Yes.
And Samuel L. Jackson has a taser and has to hunt him down.
Right.
Which is really cool. It's just it has a very 2000s young adult vibe to it.
I watched this numerous times when it came out in 2008. It's super kinetic and fast paced.
Very.
It has, really cool characters, cool action scenes. Jamie Bell is in this too, who I really like. Rachel Bilson, who ended up marrying Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
So I like that movie. Diane Lane in a very small role. Right. But that one's fun. I've seen that one numerous times.
It is definitely what a young kid would do with superpowers.
Right, exactly.
100%. He becomes a millionaire just like that.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, it's great.
Another one I wanted to mention, My Super Ex-Girlfriend. This is if you want like a romantic comedy with a superhero twist. Ivan Reitman did that movie. Uma Thurman and Luke Wilson are in it. Lots of fun. Mystery Men, if you're looking for a spoof of like a superhero team-up movie.
Yeah.
This is excellent. Made back in 1999, so before any of the big superhero craze really launched. Ben Stiller's in this, William H. Macy, so many great actors in this one. A lot of fun. If you want more of a horror vibe, check out Brightburn. This is kind of an idea that if Superman were evil, basically. If young Superman, it's this kid crashes on a farm, his spaceship crashes on a farm, his parents raise him, but he ends up becoming a bad guy instead of a good guy. So that one's fun. If you want something more colorful, look at We Can Be Heroes. That's another Robert Rodriguez one he just did recently.
Yes.
That one was a lot of fun, I thought. That was on Netflix.
And it's also tied to Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
It is. It's basically a sequel to that. Kind of a legacy sequel.
Yeah.
If you want to go low budget, look at Disney Channel, Disney Plus, if you have Disney Plus. Disney Channel original movie, Up and Away. This is again made for TV, low budget, but it is such a good story. It reminds me a lot of Sky High.
Okay.
And very colorful and fun, and all about it's not the powers that make you a hero.
Sure.
That's the kind of vibe.
I want to check it out.
So.
Sounds cool.
Now we're going to jump into our top 5. All right, so I'm going to kick us off with my number 5 is Chronicle.
Ooh, good one. This is on my list as well, but not number 5.
Okay. Chronicle, I think, is such an interesting film, so different. It's a found footage film, first of all. This movie is all from the perspective of basically one kid who starts recording his life, ends up getting these superpowers, him and 2 of his friends, and mayhem ensues, basically.
Right, yeah.
It's like 3 teenagers. Their ability is telekinesis, so they can move anything with their mind just by thinking about it. And it's all about how those 3 different characters, how they each react to having this power.
Right, and they represent kind of the 3 different people you find in high school. Like
the popular cool kid,
the jock.
Right, and then the kind of nerdy outcast.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's really well done, well acted. Dane DeHaan is the main character. Then you have Michael B. Jordan in this, one of his earliest roles.
Yeah.
And Alex Russell plays the other lead character. And they just do an excellent job with the character dynamics. Their relationship is so interesting to watch develop. And of course, the camera work. As a found footage movie, it's interesting. It's got that kind of, handheld style.
Yeah, what's so cool about it is since they all have telekinesis, they start levitating the camera.
Right.
So now you can basically have a cameraman in your found footage movie.
Yeah, the camera does all these crazy
shots and
big crane shots.
The action gets bigger and bigger as the movie goes on, as they get more powerful and as they learn new things about their powers.
Right. But it starts very gritty, grounded, character-based story.
It's very character focused through and through.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Josh Trank directed it, and he hasn't been able to top it since. He did that Fantastic Four movie, which was a big flop.
The first 5 minutes of that is pretty good.
Yeah, the studio meddling got that one, took that one out of control. He was set to direct a Boba Fett movie before it became a show. He bowed out of that, and then he directed a new movie called Capone, about the life of Al Capone, which is very bizarre.
Okay.
Tom Hardy plays an old, decrepit Al Capone.
Oh, weird.
Walking around in a diaper. It's a very bizarre film. But anyways, this is his best movie. I hope he gets to make another one soon because he's got a lot of potential, and I think he did a good job here. So yeah, we'll talk more about it when we get to it on your list. But what is your number 5?
My number 5 is Dark Man.
Yeah, this one's on my list, but it's higher.
I'm a big fan of Dark Man.
Yeah, Dark Man
is a Sam Raimi film. We all love Sam Raimi. Can't get enough Sam.
He's the best.
It's so interesting because it's really not a typical superhero. Because typically when you think superhero, you think a guy who's kind of big and muscular and he has powers and he can do all these cool things. Darkman is this dingy, gross, face melted, ugly looking monster.
Yeah, he's a movie monster.
Definitely.
It's a universal monster movie mixed with a comic book superhero film.
Right. Yeah. And he's losing his mind throughout the movie. and he's talking to himself and he's using weird voices. And it's Liam Neeson as Darkman.
It's his first leading role.
He does such an awesome job.
It's excellent.
Because you can tell he's playing so many different versions of this character in his mind.
Right.
And his whole power is he can change his face shape and make himself look like anybody.
Right.
You know, that's kind of behind the whole marketing thing of who is Darkman. Right. It's like on all the posters and stuff. Yeah. So it's really dynamically shot like any Sam Raimi movie would be.
The visuals are crazy.
It's violent and scary and haunting. It's very operatic and colorful.
And silly too.
Very silly. Very silly.
It's that perfect balance of that darkness with just his kind of. It's Evil Dead 2, basically.
It's very like, Evil Dead 2. It's less extreme.
Right.
But it's tonally very similar.
Yeah, I agree.
It's definitely a good bridge between Evil Dead 2 and Spider-Man.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We'll talk more about it when we get to it on my list. All right, my number 4 is Psychokinesis.
Oh,
yeah, you just watched this, right?
I just watched this, but it didn't make my list.
Yeah, so this is from the director of Train to Busan, my favorite zombie movie of all time.
Great zombie film.
Yang Sang-ho. He did such a good job with this, venturing out into this genre, and just like he did with the zombie genre, making it character focused.
Sure.
It's very much a father-daughter story.
Yeah.
This kind of deadbeat dad, has to help his daughter out after gaining this superpower that he has. So it's, again, character-centric, all about the relationship. I found it very funny. I thought it was good on the comedy side of things. I thought it was very heartfelt and emotional in certain moments. It just has this very small scale. Something like Chronicle, like you said, it kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Sure.
I think this just kind of stays small in a way that's really interesting. And the evil corporation behind it, I thought the bad guys were pretty good. They're kind of generic a little bit, I guess, but I just thought the 2 lead performances were really well done, and just the way he shot the film, the pacing I thought was pretty good on it too. And it's just one that stuck out in my mind as being among the superhero craze, because this movie just came out a few years ago. It's one that has stood out in my mind over time. I've only seen it once.
Okay.
I'd like to rewatch it. But what did you think of it?
I think, well, after I watched it, my initial thought was, I think this is the definition of a 3-star film.
Oh, okay.
Whereas it's above average. It does stuff that's a little interesting and unique.
Okay.
I think it has problems tonally. I don't know if it's supposed to be super, super funny, like it seems like it's trying to be.
Right.
Because visually it doesn't really line up with that.
Right.
A lot of their performances are sometimes too big and bombastic.
Okay.
The villains were pretty much just all silly and funny.
Right.
I don't know. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way in some scenes.
Okay.
I think the biggest problem for me was it begins very emotional and very, very heartfelt. And then it goes straight into super silly, nonsensical comedy.
Okay.
And it was very jarring. And for the rest of the movie, I kind of felt muddled in that.
Okay.
Not fully confident in either an emotional scene or a silly scene.
Okay.
but sometimes meshing them together in a way that didn't really work to me. It can be worked in a way where that is their characters. The dad is more silly and doesn't take stuff seriously, and the daughter's having more of a hard time and sees this as a serious problem.
Sure.
But it never really came to a satisfying spot. Even when it ended, it still felt like, oh, he's still being silly. Right. You know, it was for as serious as it started out, I was expecting something more like Chronicle. More like this is going to be a tortured, having this power as a burden for this guy, whatever.
Yeah, but, no, it's a much lighter tone. It's much sillier, funnier kind of movie.
Sure.
So yeah, I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Chronicle.
Okay.
Which we already talked about Chronicle. We don't have to talk too much about it, but I'm just a big fan of Chronicle. Since the first time I watched it, I was amazed because the characters are so real and really well developed. And it's not like you get superpowers, suddenly you're a different person. It's having these powers bring out the worst in everybody. And it shows you who you really are. The jock who you think is going to be a bully with all of his powers doesn't really turn into the villain exactly. The popular kid doesn't really capitalize on his powers like you think he would. And it's really, it's just really interesting. The characters are dynamic and they do unexpected things.
Right. And they feel very real.
Right.
You know, when you're watching them, you can relate to them.
Very well acted.
You very much are rooting for them the whole way through.
Sure.
It's hard to watch when certain characters do things you don't want them to do and things like that. So Chronicle's excellent. My number 3 pick is Darkman. We just talked a little bit about Darkman. Sam Raimi. He's just a genius when it comes to visual storytelling.
Yes.
His camera work.
I think I've talked about Sam Raimi every time I've come on.
I think you have too. So this whole movie came about because he wanted to get the rights to The Shadow.
Okay.
He wanted to make a movie about The Shadow, which is a comic book character. They ended up making a movie about it just a couple of years later with Alec Baldwin.
Just pretty good.
That's a movie I liked a lot too. This is better because this is Raimi just going crazy. You know, it's got that, like we mentioned, that monster movie feel.
Right.
Mixed with kind of like a Batman, you know, the Shadow type of kind of dark vigilante. But the interesting thing about Darkman is he's not looking to fight crime. I mean, he's fighting crime because the bad guys are criminals, but he's really just out for revenge.
Sure.
He's not like your traditional superhero.
Right.
He's really like...
He's like Frankenstein. He's like the Invisible Man. You know, he's some kind of a tortured soul.
Right. He's like Spider-Man at the beginning of The Amazing Spider-Man. He's just looking for revenge.
Sure.
He's not fighting bad guys,
right?
Really. So that's an interesting aspect to the character. Yeah, he's got all these different faces he wears. He's got this great relationship with his girlfriend, Frances McDormand plays. And she does an excellent job in this movie, just goes all in. This is just a movie that I've watched a number of times and really enjoyed.
The practical effects and makeup are incredible.
The effects work here. I mean, some groundbreaking opticals that they were doing, and the makeup effects, all practical, were really, really well done. So yeah, this is a movie I've watched a number of times.
When you can, definitely check it out. It's worth watching. If you're a Spider-Man fan or a Sam Raimi fan at all.
Yes, absolutely. Check out The Darkman.
My number 3 is Unbreakable.
Unbreakable's excellent.
Unbreakable. I'm a big Unbreakable fan.
We're going to get to that on my list soon.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, Unbreakable's brilliant. It's that uber grounded superhero. It kind of started that in a way. Yeah. You know, I mean, a lot of people attribute the first X-Men movie to that because they went no spandex, they're in leather costumes, and but they still have outlandish powers.
Sure.
Unbreakable is you're not even sure if he has powers.
Right.
That's kind of the question throughout the movie is he a superhero? Does he have superhuman abilities?
Right.
And him slowly figuring things out and it's really a slow burn. Like all M. Night Shyamalan movies, it has a great reveal.
Yeah.
It's definitely one to watch knowing little going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. The less you know, the better. Just know that, it's M. Night, to me, at his best. And I'll talk more about it in a minute, but it's also Bruce Willis at his best. Definitely. I think the performances in this are absolutely unbelievable. Really, really well done film.
Much different than Die Hard.
Totally different. That's the thing. It's like Die Hard, he's just playing a version of himself.
Sure.
Whereas this, he's playing a character that's totally different from anything you've seen him do before. So
it's just a terrific drama.
Yeah, it is.
That works super well in the genre of superhero.
Exactly. All right, we're on to my number 2, which is The Incredibles from 2004, directed by Brad Bird, one of your favorite films of all time.
Absolutely.
I think I know where this is on your list. So this is the best Fantastic Four movie ever made.
Sure.
It's all about a family of superheroes. That's what the Fantastic Four were in the original Marvel comics. It's this Marvel's first family, you know? And so they do that family dynamic so well. Brad Bird, his writing is just so spot on. It's so relatable. And the dialogue is just so meaningful in every scene. There's not a scene wasted here. You have a villain that's actually sympathetic in many ways. The voice cast, I have to mention, Craig T. Nelson as Mr. Incredible. Awesome performance. Holly Hunter as Elastigirl is so good. Jason Lee does a great job as Syndrome. Everyone in this movie is just doing a great job. Michael Giacchino, of course, that incredible kind of jazzy James Bond score.
Very.
What's cool about this movie is that it has kind of that, Fantastic Four, very comic booky feel, mixed with kind of a Bond-esque idea, where it's like, he's got this crazy villain who's got this crazy plot, and he lives on an island, so they got to go to the island.
No Man is an Island.
That's right. It's so good. It's so well done. So you got this kind of like hero sneaking around the island, sequence, and it's just really well done. Again, it's the relationships and the relatability of all these characters that to me makes this work so well. Great action sequences, of course. Yeah, it's an all-timer. And we'll get to it soon. What is your number 2?
My number 2 is one I watch regularly. It's a movie called Sky High.
Sky High. Yes, of course. Oh, man. Great one. Great one. Yeah, go ahead.
I adore Sky High. Sky High is super colorful.
Yes.
Super fun. Super energetic.
It looks like a comic.
It looks like a comic book, but it feels like a teen drama.
Right.
And it has all of your teen drama tropes that you would have in like a sort of maybe a high school musical sort of scenario.
Right.
But it's super fun. They all have powers. The characters all change and all have very compelling arcs. And it's really about sidekicks. Right. That's what's so cool about it. So the social hierarchy of the high school is you have the heroes and the sidekicks.
Right.
And it's all about this group of sidekicks and this one sidekick that becomes a hero.
Right.
And it's like that social shift, and he gets new friends now, and kind of it's all about the social dynamics of high school combined with the dynamics of superhero sidekick relationships.
Yeah.
And how sidekicks are always underappreciated, but are crucial to what make a superhero who they are.
Yeah.
And it's really that kind of underdog story of growing up and finding out your place and knowing who you're going to become. And there are just so many really dynamic and interesting characters. Layla is one who's very countercultural in the way that she kind of behaves, and she winds up being like this really awesome character by the end. And you've just got these really unique relationships between characters that develop. And some characters are surprise villains, and some characters, it's no surprise that they're a villain. In this universe, there are heroes and villains,
right? And
they kind of coexist. And it's not like they're constantly at battle.
Right.
I'm not sure what the police do in this universe. It's always fun to watch. Even though I know the twists and turns of the story, it's always just visually engaging. There's so many Dutch angles, and it feels like a comic book panel every time you look at it. And it's just, the colors pop. The emotions are big. It's exactly as a superhero movie should be.
Yeah.
And it's totally original.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's like you said, it's not trying to be gritty or grounded. It's all trying to be big and like you said, colorful, very comic book feel to this whole story. It's good. It's good. It's one that I enjoy. I don't enjoy it as much as you, I think, because I was a little older.
Sure.
When it came out, and I was into the Dark Knight phase,
yeah.
And so, but I still enjoy it greatly. I think it's tons of fun. It's probably one of the funniest superhero movies. I think it is hilarious.
It is.
There are so many lines, remember when we used to use Real Citizens, stuff like that, little things that they'll throw in. that are just great. Bruce Campbell's in this; he's hilarious. You
Right.
got Linda Carter making a cameo
as the principal of the school.
Of course, yeah.
Principal Powers.
That's right.
They all have wonderful names.
They all do, yeah, very comic booky names and costumes. Kurt Russell and Kelly Preston are the parents of the main character, and they're great in it too. So yeah, this is one I can watch anytime. It's just I'll always have fun with it.
Yeah, this and my number one pick both do things I think that are really impressive, and that's creating unique superheroes with somewhat unique powers that have totally original names, like the Commander in Jetstream, and
Captain Boomer,
and, or Coach Boomer, they call him. You may know me as Sonic Boom.
That's right.
You may not.
Boom,
yeah. Royal Pain is the name of the villain, and that kind of ties into their whole plot. Just so many really interesting and creative ideas that are put into every little detail of this movie. There's a science, like all of the school subject are superhero themed.
Right, because the whole premise is superheroes have kids, and those kids need to go to school somewhere. They can't go to school with regular kids, so they go to this school that's literally in the sky, sky high, and that's where they're learning to use all their powers. And who's becoming a hero, who's becoming a sidekick, and all that. So yeah, like you said, the classes are all geared towards superhero stuff,
like the Mad Science Lab.
Right. Physical education is all like how to save a citizen.
That crowd control type of thing. Yeah, very cool. Anyways, what's your number one?
My number one is one we've already mentioned. It's Unbreakable.
Unbreakable
is my favorite non-comic book superhero movie because
it's almost the polar opposite of Sky.
Yeah, exactly. It's super dark and dingy. It's like, very quiet. Not a lot of jokes. It's just like very serious.
Yeah, there are a few funny. They're levity. It's levity. It's not really humor.
Exactly.
It's just like easing the tension.
Sure. And M. Night Shyamalan, one of my favorite directors. I think he's just a great writer and director. Signs, The Village, Sixth Sense. He's done all these great kind of thrillers. He's kind of known for the big twist at the end of his movies, and he does a good job here. I think not only as a writer, because the dialogue is very good, it's very relatable and real, but as a director, what the performances he's getting out of this cast, like I said, it's my favorite Bruce Willis performance ever. I think it's super understated, and Sam Jackson here I think is better than ever. This character he's playing is so memorable and different and unique, and has such a point of view and motivation. The other actors in the movie, Robin Wright as Bruce Willis's wife, I think she does a phenomenal job as well. Has to play some very emotional scenes, and his young son Spencer Treat Clark also gives a great child actor performance.
Super great.
He couldn't have been more than 10 or 12 maybe, and he does an excellent job. Some really intense
definitely
scenes.
Some of the most memorable moments in the movie come from him and his dad, and
absolutely
it's an utterly terrific movie.
It's not one of these action heavy movies. It's all about character. It's all about the relationships and how they're interacting and what's really going on and what he's going to do once he discovers what he discovers. And it's great, but it also does have great use of color if you really pay attention. There are specific colors
thematically. The colors purple, and
they stick out. Green and yellow. All these colors stick out, and what's cool about it is they talk about a comic book in this movie several times, and all the dialogue surrounding these comic book characters that exist in this world is very relevant to what's going on in these characters' lives. So it's just a kind of layered movie that's really interesting. It's really, if you step back and look at it, the entire film is just the first act of most superhero movies. It's just the discovery of the superpower.
It's the issue one.
Right, exactly. And so it's very different in that regard. You don't have like the second act where he's like suiting up as a superhero and then fighting this big villain at the end, and there's this huge battle in the city. It's not that. It's very much just that first part of the discovery.
The ending of the movie is 10 times more impactful and heartbreaking than any MCU movie has been ever, really ever.
Pretty much any superhero movie. I mean, it's really one of the great movie endings, I think. It's really impactful. And so, I had to put this at number one because I've watched it numerous times, and every time I watch it, I get something new out of it. It's one of those movies where you'll notice little details. It's really become a cult classic because it was not well received when it was first released. Critics didn't really get it. Audiences didn't rush out to see it. Didn't make a ton of money, even though it was coming off of the success of The Sixth Sense, which was this huge movie. It was just not what people were expecting, I think, from M. Night. And now it's so much more relevant after the superhero craze has taken over.
Definitely.
And that's why he ended up making the sequels, Split and Glass. And those movies, I don't think are nearly as good. I think they're interesting in their own ways, but this one still stands above them as being the best. Unbreakable had to be my number one.
Love it.
One of my favorite movies ever. What is your number one?
My number one, of course, is The Incredibles.
Yes.
Love The Incredibles. I've talked about it many times before. Again, this is another one of those things I talk about almost every time I'm on here.
Yep, good old Brad Bird.
But really, what I want to bring home about all of these movies is there are so many superhero stories that are worth being told that aren't from big studios.
Yes, there are plenty of original ideas out there that should be made.
Definitely.
And aren't getting made, unfortunately. But
all of these movies that we've brought up here are totally worth watching.
Totally.
Sometimes some of them are more worth watching than the big blockbuster superhero movies out there right now.
I agree.
Incredibles to me is kind of an all-time great example of a trope that's done a lot now, of the sort of retired superhero coming back.
Right.
And something I think that makes that more interesting than a loner is that he has a family.
Right.
And he's not totally grizzled and miserable and depressed. But he has this responsibility outside of just being a superhero and having powers. It's keeping this family together. It's working a job that you hate.
Yeah.
It's much more real stuff people can relate to.
Right.
It's more family. It's more simple.
Yeah.
But it's just as impactful and just as emotional, I think, as any other superhero story that's been told kind of in that retiree, relive the glory days type stories. And again, it's animated, so it's smashy and dynamic and colorful, and the action is just super great. The sound effects are amazing. There's so much that really stands out to me in Incredibles as being one of my all-time favorite movies, as it's just the way they talk is brilliant, the way it sounds, the way it looks. I could endlessly watch and talk about this movie because I just get such a kick out of it.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's got a great energy and pace to it. And it just tells a very unique story, a story that we really haven't seen in this genre before. And it's made by Pixar, one of the great movie studios, one of the great directors, Brad Bird. Just has he had a great team together on this movie. It's like all the pieces fell into place.
Right.
And it's really, really well done. So good pick for your number one. All right, folks. Well, that is our top 5. Those are our favorite non-comic book superhero movies. Let us know your list in the comments below. Thanks for joining us, Carson. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Make sure to join the conversation on social media, like and subscribe, do all the things you know you should do.
That's right.
And we'll see you in the next one.
Turning you into a YouTuber already. Also, be sure to follow us on Letterboxd. Those links are in the description below, along with all of our social media sites. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Right
here
on
The
Real
World.